The annual Thompson family gathering was in full swing at my aunt's sprawling estate. Crystal glasses chimed against each other, expensive heels tapped rhythmically across polished marble, and the atmosphere was heavy with entitlement and unspoken judgment. I sat quietly in my understated black dress, sipping champagne and observing my relatives flaunt their accomplishments like birds competing for attention. "Anna, sweetheart," my Aunt Victoria's voice carried that familiar undertone of manufactured concern. "Still doing that consulting work?" Before I could respond, my cousin Sophia cut in, her diamond bracelet glinting as she waved her hand dismissively. "Can you believe it? A full decade after graduation and she's still just some anonymous consultant." I took another slow sip, my thoughts drifting to the stack of contracts waiting on my desk at Phoenix Consulting Group's central office. Tomorrow's acquisition would be the most significant transaction the industry had ever witnessed, but that wasn't information they needed just yet. "At least she keeps herself busy," Uncle Richard thundered in his characteristic baritone. "Though heaven knows what kind of consulting she's actually doing, probably advising corner shops on their social media presence." The family dissolved into polished, practiced laughter. I caught a glimpse of my mother retreating further into the corner, wishing she could disappear entirely. She'd never quite recovered from the day I declined the VP role at Thompson Industries, our family's prized business. "How's that major merger coming along?" I asked casually, watching Sophia and Uncle Richard exchange self-satisfied glances. "Oh, you've caught wind of that?" Sophia cooed. "Daddy's been pouring himself into it for months. Tomorrow we finalize everything with Phoenix Consulting Group. It's going to completely transform Thompson Industries, the biggest transaction in our company's entire existence." Uncle Richard puffed out his chest. "Though the woman running Phoenix is practically a ghost, nobody can find a single thing about her." I smiled quietly into my champagne flute. "How fascinating." "Speaking of real achievement," my aunt interjected, steering the conversation, "did anyone hear about Marcus? Just been elevated to senior executive at Thompson, carrying on the family tradition, unlike others." "Yes," cousin Marcus, who had spent the past week drowning in the due diligence documentation my team had specifically requested, if only they understood. Sophia continued cataloging family victories, mentioning cousin Isabella's recent promotion to head of operations. "We're all climbing the ladder while poor Anna is still... What exactly do you call what you do? Some kind of business consultant?" "Something along those lines," I replied pleasantly. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a message from my CFO regarding tomorrow's proceedings. I politely excused myself and slipped out to the garden, where soft lights glimmered among the hedges. "Everything is in order for tomorrow," I murmured into the phone. "Have the documents prepared by 9 in the morning, and, James, ensure the boardroom has a clear view of the skyline. I want them to fully grasp who they're sitting across from." When I returned inside, the family had migrated to their favorite subject, ranking one another's financial worth. Uncle Richard was performing magnificently, waxing lyrical about Thompson Industries' market position. "20 billion valuation," he announced with theatrical pride. "Set to hit 30 after we close tomorrow's deal. That's what genuine success looks like." My mother finally ventured a quiet defense. "Anna does perfectly well for herself." "Perfectly well," Aunt Victoria repeated with a laugh. "Patricia, darling, when will you make peace with the fact that your daughter chose the scenic route? She could have been someone important at Thompson." I glanced at my watch. 18 hours until the meeting. 18 hours until they discovered that Phoenix Consulting Group, the enigmatic firm they were so eagerly pursuing, belonged to me. That the future of their treasured family empire rested in the hands of the cousin they'd spent years writing off. "More champagne, Anna?" Sophia offered with theatrical generosity. "You should savor it. I imagine you don't encounter anything this refined in your line of work." I accepted the glass graciously, thinking briefly of my private collection. A cellar stocked with bottles worth more than her quarterly earnings. "Thank you, Sophia. You're absolutely right. This is something special." As the evening stretched on, the remarks kept coming. Every pointed comment about my professional choices, every dismissive wave, every look dripping with pity, I cataloged each one carefully, They would all make tomorrow considerably more satisfying. "Don't be late for the signing tomorrow, Daddy," Sophia called out as guests began filtering toward the exit. 10 o'clock sharp at Phoenix Consulting Group's headquarters. "As if I'd forget," Uncle Richard replied. "Though I do wish we had more information about whoever runs the place. Remarkably guarded individual, apparently." "Very guarded indeed," I agreed, collecting my belongings. "Best of luck tomorrow. I have a strong feeling it's going to be a morning nobody forgets." The following day, I arrived at Phoenix Consulting Group's headquarters at 7 in the morning. The 60-story glass tower caught the early sunlight, our company emblem gleaming boldly against the skyline. In my top-floor office, I exchanged my casual clothes for a perfectly tailored Armani suit and studied my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Miss Thompson," said Michael, my executive assistant, stepping in with a sheaf of documents. "The Thompson Industries party arrives in 2 hours. Your team has completed the pre-meeting briefing?" "Perfect." I straightened my CEO pin, the one that had never once accompanied me to a family function. "Any word from Uncle Richard?" "He's apparently been calling since dawn, trying to get advance intelligence on whoever he's meeting," Michael said, suppressing a grin. "Quite agitated by the silence, from what I'm told." I laughed softly, recalling his performance the night before. 20 billion market cap. Phoenix Consulting Group was valued at roughly 3 times that figure, though we were meticulous about keeping that particular detail out of public records. At 8:30, I gathered my leadership team in the briefing room. These were the individuals who had helped me construct Phoenix from the ground up, exceptional minds I had recruited during the very years my family imagined I was struggling along as some minor consultant. "Today is going to be memorable," I told them. "The Thompson Industries delegation has no idea I'm the executive they've been trying to identify. I want everything flawless when they walk through those doors." "Including the part where your uncle tried to negotiate us down on the preliminary offer?" asked James, my CFO, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Especially that part," I confirmed. "Have the accurate figures prepared and ready." At 9:45, security notified me that the Thompson Group had arrived in the lobby. Through the monitor feed, I watched Uncle Richard stride in confidently, trailed by Sophia, Marcus, and several board members. "Look at this building," Sophia's voice carried through the audio feed. "Who knew a consulting company could command a space like this?" "The owner must be extraordinarily wealthy," Marcus added. "Did you know they hold the deed to the entire tower?" "Just remember," Uncle Richard cautioned the group, "we need this deal. Everyone stay composed." I switched off the monitor and addressed my team calmly. "Places, everyone. Let's give them a proper Phoenix welcome." The delegation was first guided through our showcase gallery, where large screens mapped Phoenix's international footprint, offices across 40 countries, a workforce exceeding 10,000, and a client roster encompassing half of the Fortune 500 companies globally. Through the discrete camera system, I observed their expressions shift as they absorbed the full scale of the organization they were dealing with. Uncle Richard's trademark confidence had visibly faltered. Sophia was scrolling frantically through her phone, hunting for any trace of Phoenix's elusive leader. At precisely 10:01, Michael escorted them into the main boardroom. The space had been designed with intention. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing the entire city, a vast table crafted from African blackwood, and cutting-edge technology integrated throughout. "The chief executive will join you momentarily," Michael informed them, keeping his expression professionally neutral. I watched through the observation glass as they arranged themselves around the table, Uncle Richard naturally gravitating toward the head seat. My usual position. How appropriate. "This operation is considerably larger than we anticipated," I heard Marcus murmur. "Their financial performance is extraordinary." "It's still just a consulting business," Uncle Richard countered, though his voice had lost its earlier authority. "Though I'll admit this CEO has me curious. Seems nobody has so much as a photograph." Sophia hadn't put her phone down. "There's virtually no digital trace of this person, only that they founded the company a decade ago and built it entirely from scratch. No press appearances, no interviews, nothing." I gave myself one final look. The woman reflected back bore almost no resemblance to the dismissed nobody from the previous evening's gathering. This was the executive who had constructed a global enterprise while her family hadn't been paying attention. "It's time, Sam," I said to Michael. He gave a brief nod and stepped into the boardroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Consulting Group." I drew a slow breath, placed my hand on the door handle, and pushed both doors open, crossing the threshold with measured, deliberate steps. The expressions on my family members' faces were more rewarding than any transaction I had ever negotiated. Uncle Richard's jaw dropped open. Sophia's phone slipped from her fingers and struck the table. Marcus, who had begun rising from his seat out of courtesy, slowly lowered himself back down as though the strength had left him entirely. "Good morning," I said evenly, moving to claim the chair at the table's head. "Please relocate, Uncle Richard. You're in my seat." "Anna," he managed, stumbling sideways. "You're the CEO. You're the one nobody could find anything about." "The very same," I said. "The executive you've been investigating. The person who currently holds your company's trajectory in her hands." Sophia had gone the color of chalk, her immaculate designer outfit somehow appearing less impressive beside my bespoke suit. "But last night you said—" "I said I was a consultant," I clarified. "I simply omitted the detail that I own the firm, the world's largest as it happens." My executive team entered and took their positions around the table. Each of them had, at some point, been present for my family's condescension. This moment belonged to all of us. "Now then," I said, opening the merger documentation, "shall we discuss what the terms actually look like?" Uncle Richard straightened slightly. "We already settled on terms." "Your team reached a preliminary understanding with my representatives," I corrected. "But following last night's rather illuminating family reunion, I've revisited certain elements." I gestured to James, who distributed the revised contracts around the table. The figures prompted Marcus to inhale sharply and cough. "This is extortion!" Uncle Richard burst out, his complexion darkening. "This is an accurate reflection of market value," I replied calmly. "You see, unlike the picture you've been presenting, I know precisely what Thompson Industries is worth, including the aspects you've been concealing from interested parties." Sophia was turning pages rapidly. "The pension shortfall, the offshore accounts—" "Did you genuinely believe my team wouldn't surface all of it during the due diligence?" I asked quietly. "The shell entities, the overstated assets, every detail is accounted for." The room went still except for the soft turning of pages and the sharp involuntary breaths of people reckoning with exposure. "You orchestrated this," Marcus said, his voice tight. "You've been planning this for years." "Planning? No. Building something large enough to acquire your company several times over? Yes." I rose and walked toward the windows. "For an entire decade, you mocked my decisions, dismissed what I was building, and treated me as though I were falling behind. All while I was assembling something your organization could never rival." I turned to face them. "Would you like to know Phoenix's actual valuation? The figure we don't publish?" Uncle Richard gave a small, subdued nod. $65 billion, I said quietly. "More than 3 times what Thompson Industries commands. That champagne you so graciously poured for me last evening, I hold a stake in the producer, the estate where we held the reunion. I purchased the land it sits on last year." Sophia gripped the edge of the table as though steadying herself. "Every time we included you at family events?" she whispered. "You were attending as our largest competitor," I finished. "There's a certain poetry in that, don't you think?" I returned to my seat, settled comfortably, and let the silence hold its weight. "You have 2 paths available to you: sign the revised agreement, which grants Phoenix a controlling position in Thompson Industries, or walk away, though I'd encourage you to consider what it means for your stock price when the market learns this deal has collapsed." Uncle Richard looked diminished. The grand